At a family dinner, my daughter-in-law Rebecca loudly declared I was only good for increasing their medicine bill. My own son, Daniel, just awkwardly laughed. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, but a quiet fire ignited within me. They didn't know I still held the deed to the house they thought was theirs. Watch how I turn the tables on their cruelty. Like, share, and let us know where you're listening from. The aroma of homemade lasagna usually brought me a comforting warmth, a familiar sense of purpose. But tonight it only highlighted the ache in my joints. At 72, my hands, gnarled by arthritis, protested every stir of the bechamel sauce, every careful layering of pasta, ricotta, and rich bolognese. Yet I persevered. Daniel, my son, had invited several of his colleagues and their spouses over for dinner, and I wanted everything to be perfect. For Daniel, always for Daniel. He was my only child, and though he had grown into a man I sometimes barely recognized, the mother in me still yearned to please him, to make him proud. I had spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen, a whirlwind of flour and simmering tomatoes, ignoring the throbbing in my wrists and the dull pain in my lower back. I imagined the compliments, the satisfied murmurs around the dining table, and hoped that just for one night, I might feel truly a part of this household again. Rebecca, Daniel's wife, was in the living room, occasionally calling out an instruction, but mostly she remained glued to her phone, completely disinterested in the culinary endeavor that was meant to impress her husband's professional circle. Dinner was finally served, the golden brown lasagna steaming invitingly from the large ceramic dish. I carefully carried it to the ornate dining table, a heavy piece of furniture I had personally chosen years ago. As I placed it down, Daniel, already seated, called out, "Mom, can you get me some more water, please?" He didn't even look at me, his gaze fixed on a story Rebecca was animatedly telling. I glanced at Rebecca, hoping she might offer to help, seeing my slow, deliberate movements. She was, as expected, engrossed in her phone, tapping away with a practiced indifference. I sighed internally, trudging back to the kitchen for the water. The clinking of cutlery, the polite laughter, and the hum of conversation washed over me, a symphony of connection from which I felt utterly excluded. I was merely the help, the silent background figure. I sat down, trying to join in, but the conversation swirled around me like a current I couldn't navigate. Daniel's boss, a kind-faced man named Mr. Henderson, eventually turned to me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Eleanor," he began, "Daniel tells me you've been retired for a good while now. Are you enjoying your golden years?" Before I could even form a polite reply, Rebecca let out a dramatic, exasperated sigh. The sound cut through the air, drawing every eye to her. A faint blush crept up my neck, a familiar prelude to humiliation. Rebecca put down her phone with a deliberate thud, fixing Mr. Henderson with a saccharine smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Mr. Henderson," she drawled, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Retirement is a very generous word for what Eleanor does. She mostly goes to doctors and picks up prescriptions. This old lady is only good for increasing our medicine bill." The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. The lively chatter at the table died instantly, replaced by a suffocating silence. My ears burned and my cheeks flushed crimson. It felt as if a physical blow had landed, knocking the air from my lungs. Every guest, every colleague of Daniel's, was now looking at me, or perhaps pointedly away, unsure where to direct their gaze. My vision blurred slightly, and I felt a wave of profound shame wash over me. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. My heart pounded, a frantic drum against my ribs. I squeezed my trembling hands in my lap, praying that Daniel, my son, would stand up for me, praying he would say something, anything, to defend his mother from this public, cruel assault. A lifetime of sacrifices, of unconditional love, should surely earn me at least that. I looked at him, my eyes pleading. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He cleared his throat, a nervous sound. He didn't meet my gaze. Instead, he forced a strained, awkward laugh. "Oh, Rebecca, you're so dramatic," he mumbled, a weak attempt at humor that only made things worse. Then, without missing a beat, he turned to Mr. Henderson. "So, Mr. Henderson, about that new project. I was thinking we could approach it from a different angle." And just like that, he changed the subject, abandoning me, leaving me exposed and devastated. My world tilted. The food in front of me turned to ash. I ate nothing more, merely pushed the exquisite lasagna around my plate, a hollow ache in my chest far outweighing the physical pain in my hands. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite noises and forced smiles, none of which reached me. That night, lying sleepless in the small, impersonal guest bedroom that had been mine for the last 5 years, a chilling realization solidified within me. This wasn't my home anymore. This house, the one I had poured my life savings into, the one I had lovingly gifted to Daniel and Rebecca when they started their family, was no longer mine. I was an unwelcome guest, a burden, a charity case who only added to their medicine bill. The walls seemed to close in around me, echoing Rebecca's venomous words and Daniel's cowardly silence. The dawn broke, painting the sky with colors I couldn't appreciate. No one had come to check on me. No apology had been whispered. Not from Daniel, not from Rebecca. The raw wound of the previous night festered, but it also opened the floodgates to years of smaller slights, forgotten birthdays, dismissive comments, and the countless times I had felt like an afterthought in my own son's life. It wasn't just about last night, it was a pattern, a slow, agonizing erosion of my dignity and worth. As the sun climbed higher, a cold, fierce resolve began to crystallize within me, hardening the pain into purpose. There was a secret I had kept, a small, independent nest egg from my late husband's pension, carefully managed over the years, untouched by Daniel or Rebecca's needs. And then there was the house. Their house, as they called it, but not entirely. The deed, though in Daniel's name, still retained a clause I had insisted upon, a contingency for my continued residence. More importantly, it had been a gift, and a gift could be reevaluated. I got out of bed, my movements stiff but determined. My arthritic hands found their way to the old rotary phone on the small nightstand. I found the number I'd scribbled down months ago almost on a whim after seeing an advertisement on TV. My fingers slowly dialed. "Golden Sunset Realty," a cheerful voice answered. "How can I help you today?" "Yes," I stated, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'd like to speak to someone about selling a house." The agent paused, a beat of confusion in her voice. "And which property are you referring to, ma'am? Is this your personal residence?" I took a deep breath, the pain in my heart momentarily eclipsed by the burgeoning strength in my soul. "No," I said, my voice firm and clear. "Not anymore." The real estate agent, Mr. Miller, was a man of impeccable tailored suits and a reassuring demeanor. We met a few days after my initial call, not at the house, but at a discreet coffee shop a few towns over. I sat across from him, clutching my handbag, my heart aflutter with a mixture of apprehension and a strange, exhilarating hope. He listened patiently as I explained, with carefully chosen words, the circumstances of my living situation and my desire to sell the property. Then he laid out the legal documents, highlighting the crucial clause I had insisted upon years ago when I transferred the deed to Daniel. It wasn't full co-ownership, but a life estate of sorts, a provision that required my written consent for any sale of the property while I was still living. At the time, it had seemed a mere formality, a safeguard I thought I'd never actually need, a legacy planning detail. Now it felt like a lifeline, a gleaming, powerful sword in my trembling hands. Mr. Miller's confirmation of my partial legal rights to the house settled a deep tremor within me. This wasn't a desperate act. It was a right. He looked up from the papers, his brow furrowed with a hint of concern. "Mrs. Vance," he began, his voice gentle, "are you absolutely certain about this? Selling a home is a significant decision, especially under these circumstances." I met his gaze, my own eyes, I hoped, reflecting the steely resolve that had taken root in my heart. "I'm certain, Mr. Miller," I stated, my voice clear and firm, surprising even myself. "How quickly can we proceed?" His initial surprise gave way to a professional nod. "Very well," he said. "I'll draw up the necessary paperwork." In the days that followed, I walked through the house with a different kind of vision. Each room, each hallway, was suddenly laden with two sets of memories: the vibrant pentagram and the hollow present. In Daniel's old bedroom, I ran my hand over a small, faded mark on the wall where his baseball bat had once accidentally connected during a particularly enthusiastic game of imaginary home run. I could almost hear his childhood laughter. The living room held the ghost of Robert, my late husband, at his old piano, filling the space with melancholic melodies. I remembered countless evenings curled up on the sofa, reading stories to my grandchildren, Ethan and his sister Lily, their small heads nestled against my shoulder. But now the house felt cavernous, echoing with a silence that spoke volumes. The spaces that once bustled with life now often felt empty, even when Daniel and Rebecca were home. I was a fixture, part of the furniture, rarely addressed directly, my presence acknowledged only when something was needed from me. I had become a supporting character in my own home, a mere background extra. The bitter truth was, I felt lonelier within those walls than I ever had alone. My decision wasn't just about reclaiming my dignity, it was about finding a place where I truly belonged, where I wouldn't be invisible. Mr. Miller was remarkably efficient. Within a week, the house was under contract. A quick sale, he attributed it to the buoyant market and its desirable location. The day I signed the final papers at his office, accepting a substantial cashier's check in return, I felt an almost dizzying sense of liberation. This was it, the ultimate escape hatch. Simultaneously, I had been exploring options for myself. The brochure for Silver Bay Apartments had caught my eye. It was a community for active seniors, nestled by the ocean, with pictures of vibrant residents engaged in pottery classes, walking groups, and communal dinners. The idea of living near the soothing sound of waves, surrounded by people who were choosing to live their golden years to the fullest, filled me with a youthful excitement I hadn't felt in decades. It was a small, two-bedroom apartment, just enough space for me and my chosen treasures. In the weeks leading up to my departure, I perfected the art of discreet packing. Most of the furniture, the heavy pieces that belonged to the house, I would leave behind. They were part of a life I was shedding. Instead, I focused on the irreplaceable, the worn leather photo albums chronicling generations of my family, the delicate jewelry my mother had passed down, Robert's intricately engraved watch, and the patchwork quilt my grandmother had sewn, a tangible piece of love and warmth. Each item was carefully wrapped, quietly tucked away, a clandestine operation carried out late at night when the house was silent and Daniel and Rebecca were asleep. During the day, I maintained my usual routine, a masterclass in emotional camouflage. I listened to Rebecca's endless complaints about rising grocery prices, Daniel's stresses at work, their plans for the children. I nodded, offered platitudes, all the while holding my incredible secret close, a warm, defiant ember in my chest. One evening, Daniel came home buzzing with an idea. "Mom," he said, "we're thinking of finally redoing the kitchen and main bathroom. It's going to be a pretty extensive job, probably a month or two of construction. It might be best if you stayed with Aunt Carol for a bit, just until the dust settles." Rebecca, ever quick with a suggestion, chimed in, "And while you're there, Eleanor, maybe Aunt Carol knows of some cheaper alternatives for your arthritis medication. You know, with the rising costs, every bit helps." Her words were a chilling echo of her public humiliation of me. I simply nodded, a serene smile playing on my lips. "Yes, Daniel," I said, "that sounds perfectly reasonable." Inside, a quiet triumph flared. They had no idea how utterly irrelevant their suggestions would soon become. The final piece of my plan clicked into place when Daniel announced a weekend trip. "Ethan's team made it to the regional soccer tournament in Philadelphia," he boomed one Friday morning. "We'll be gone the whole weekend." Rebecca was already compiling a list of snacks and supplies. They were oblivious, wrapped up in their own family bubble, leaving the door wide open for my silent exit. As soon as their car pulled out of the driveway, laden with suitcases and sporting gear, I made the call. "Hello, this is Eleanor Vance. My moving appointment is scheduled for this afternoon." Within hours, a small moving truck arrived. My entire life, carefully curated over 72 years, now condensed into a few boxes and a handful of sentimental items, was loaded into its modest interior. Before I left, I placed a plain white envelope on the kitchen counter beneath a magnet of a smiling sunflower. Inside were the notarized sale papers and a brief, heartfelt note. "I've given all I can," it read. "Now I need to live what remains of my life. Don't try to find me. I'll contact you when I'm ready." I walked through the empty house one last time, a strange mix of sorrow and exhilaration washing over me. In the living room, a framed photograph of a younger Daniel, beaming from his college graduation, caught my eye. I picked it up, ran my thumb over his smiling face. "I love you, my son," I whispered, a tear tracing a path down my cheek. "But I can't be invisible anymore." Then I closed the door behind me for the last time. A waiting taxi took me away, towards the promise of Silver Bay Apartments, towards a new life. The taxi pulled up to the entrance of Silver Bay Apartments, a collection of low-rise buildings painted in soothing shades of blue and white, perfectly blending with the coastal landscape. As I stepped out, a fresh, salty breeze kissed my face, carrying with it the distant murmur of the ocean. It felt like a cleansing breath, washing away years of resentment and suffocating expectation. I paid the driver, retrieved my modest luggage, and turned to face my new beginning. The weight that had pressed down on my shoulders for so long, the invisible chains of obligation and unacknowledged sacrifice, finally lifted. A stirring of hope, fragile yet persistent, unfurled in my chest. I knew with absolute certainty that my phone would explode by Sunday night. Daniel, Rebecca, the realization of my absence and the revelation of the house sale would undoubtedly send them into a frenzy. But for now, for these 2 precious days, I would savor the peace, the quiet, the profound sense of autonomy. Sunday evening arrived, heralded by a glorious sunset that painted the sky in fiery oranges and soft purples. The gentle rhythm of waves, a steady, soothing whisper, filled my small ocean view apartment. I spent the afternoon carefully arranging my few belongings, transforming the modest space into a true home. My grandmother's quilt was draped over the armchair, the photo albums placed lovingly on a small side table, and Robert's watch, a silent sentinel, rested on the nightstand. It wasn't much, but it was all mine, chosen by me, for me. My new neighbors, a kind-faced woman named Brenda from 3B, and a jovial gentleman, Mr. Davies from the apartment across the hall, had already stopped by to offer warm greetings and plates of freshly baked cookies. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine welcome, a sense of belonging that wasn't tinged with obligation or expectation. I could breathe, really breathe. At exactly 7:36 p.m., as the last sliver of the sun dipped below the horizon, I pictured them. Daniel, Rebecca, Ethan, and Lily, returning from their soccer tournament trip to a quiet, unexpectedly empty house. I imagined Daniel walking into the kitchen, perhaps expecting me to be there, preparing a late dinner, or Rebecca calling out for me to fetch something. The note, the sale papers, they would find them soon enough. At 7:42 p.m., my phone, resting innocently on the small dining table, sprang to life. Daniel's name flashed across the screen, a beacon of frantic concern. I watched it ring, once, twice, 3 times, each vibration a tremor of the storm I knew was brewing. I did not answer. It stopped, then immediately rang again, and again. Then the text began to flood in, a relentless barrage. "Mom, what is this? Call me now. What do you mean you sold the house? This isn't funny. Where are you?" The messages grew increasingly agitated, a mixture of disbelief, anger, and a thinly veiled panic. I gently placed the phone down, silencing its insistent buzzing against the polished wood of the table. My gaze drifted to the now twilight ocean, a vast expanse of calm. Robert had always promised me we'd retire by the sea, a dream that life's twists and turns had cruelly denied us. But here I was, living that dream, albeit alone. A bittersweet smile touched my lips. The phone continued its desperate symphony, a frantic duet of calls and messages. Daniel, then Rebecca, then Daniel again. Even a call from one of my former neighbors, Mrs. Henderson, likely alerted by the commotion. Yet I felt an odd, profound peace. There was no guilt, no second guessing, only a quiet certainty that I had done what was necessary. After an hour of this relentless assault, I picked up the phone. 99 missed calls, countless messages. I silenced it with a decisive tap, then tucked it away in a drawer, out of sight, out of mind. That night, lulled by the rhythmic crashing of waves against the shore, instead of the distant hum of complaints and unspoken resentments, I slept better than I had in years. Deeply, peacefully, completely. Monday morning brought with it a sense of renewed clarity. I made myself a proper breakfast, scrambled eggs, crisp bacon, and a cup of freshly brewed coffee, a luxury I rarely afforded myself when living with Daniel and Rebecca. I savored each bite, each sip, a celebration of my newfound freedom. Just as I was finishing, a gentle knock sounded at my door. It was Brenda from 3B, her face wreathed in a friendly smile. "Good morning, Eleanor. Hope I'm not disturbing you. Just wanted to see if you'd be interested in joining our book club. We meet every Monday afternoon." My heart warmed. A book club. A chance to engage, to connect. "Why, Brenda," I replied, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "I'd love to." The book club met in the communal lounge, a bright, airy room with large windows overlooking the ocean. A small group of women, all around my age, welcomed me with genuine warmth. We discussed a novel about a woman who finds her true self after facing a monumental loss, a story that resonated deeply with me. Alice, a sharp-witted woman with twinkling eyes, complimented my insight on the protagonist's journey. For the first time in a long time, my words felt valued, my presence appreciated. By evening, after a truly fulfilling day, I cautiously retrieved my phone from the drawer. The screen immediately lit up, displaying a fresh wave of notifications. 57 new messages, 42 more calls. Daniel's messages had grown increasingly frantic, bordering on desperate. "Mom, the locks are changed. What are we supposed to do? This isn't fair. Robert would be so disappointed in you right now." The mention of Robert, a blatant attempt at a guilt trip, stung, but it no longer held the power to paralyze me. I took a deep breath. My fingers, steady now, typed a short message. "I'm safe. I need time. Please respect that." I saw Daniel's name flash on the screen almost immediately, attempting to call again. I declined the call, then with a profound sense of self-preservation, I turned off my phone completely. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of peace, full of me. The very first item on my agenda after settling into Silver Bay was to visit Ms. Chavez, the property manager. Her office, brightly lit and adorned with local seascapes, felt welcoming. I explained my situation in general terms, my need for privacy, and my desire to limit contact from external parties. Ms. Chavez, a woman with kind, understanding eyes, listened patiently, her expression never wavering. "Mrs. Vance," she said, leaning forward slightly, her voice gentle but firm, "your privacy is absolutely protected here. Many of our residents have come to Silver Bay seeking a fresh start, a place to reclaim a bit of themselves. We understand and respect that completely. Consider this your sanctuary. Silver Bay is a good place to heal." Her words were a balm to my raw nerves, a validation I hadn't realized I so desperately needed. It was as if she understood without me having to utter the messy details. I felt a profound sense of relief, a quiet gratitude for this haven. With that assurance, I began to explore my new world. Just a few blocks from my apartment, I discovered a charming independent bookstore, its windows brimming with new releases and cozy nooks. Next to it, a small cafe brewed the most aromatic coffee I had tasted in years, serving delicate pastries that melted in the mouth. The community center, a vibrant hub of activity, offered an array of classes: pottery, yoga, art, even ballroom dancing. Each discovery felt like unwrapping a long-denied gift, a little piece of bari I had unknowingly been starved of. These were simple pleasures, yet they held immense weight, symbolizing the freedom to choose, to experience, to simply be. By Wednesday, I knew it was time to check my phone again. The screen lit up with a familiar torrent of messages, more frantic than before. "Mom, please. We're worried sick. We don't understand. The kids keep asking for Grandma. Whatever we did, we can fix it. Just come home." Home, I mused, the word a bitter echo in the quiet of my new apartment. That house, with its carefully chosen furniture and meticulously maintained garden, hadn't been my home for years. It had been a gilded cage, a stage where I played an unappreciated supporting role. The thought of returning to that stifling environment, to the constant emotional tightrope walk, sent a shiver down my spine. But the question lingered: could I, at 72, truly build a real home? One that was truly mine, free from the shadows of past hurts? As I looked out at the endless expanse of the ocean, the gentle lapping of waves a constant lullaby, I felt a tremor of uncertainty, quickly followed by the salt-tinged promise of possibility. Yes, I could. I had to. A month into my new life at Silver Bay, my days had undergone a profound transformation. Sunlight streamed into my apartment each morning, chasing away the lingering shadows of past anxieties. The ocean air, invigorating and clean, filled my lungs, and with it, a noticeable decrease in the chronic stress that had plagued me. My hands, though still arthritic, felt less stiff, less painful. It was as if my body was mirroring the lightness in my spirit. I had meticulously arranged my small apartment, carefully placing my treasured possessions, the old family photos, the antique porcelain figurines, the well-loved books. Each item now held a renewed significance, an anchor to my true self, no longer overshadowed by the imposing decor of Daniel and Rebecca's house. It was modest, but it was entirely unapologetically mine. The book club had become a highlight of my week. Brenda, with her infectious laugh and keen mind, had become a close confidant. Through her, I met others in the community, women and men who engaged in lively discussions, shared stories, and listened intently. For the first time in what felt like decades, I was valued for my thoughts, my opinions, my very essence, not for my ability to provide a service or fill a perceived need. They saw Eleanor, not Daniel's mother or Rebecca's mother-in-law. One sunny morning, Brenda cornered me with a determined sparkle in her eye. "Eleanor, you've got to try Tai Chi. Master Kai is incredible, and it does wonders for flexibility." Just then, Arthur, a retired naval officer with a gentle smile and surprisingly agile movements, walked by. "She's right, Eleanor," he encouraged. "It gets easier and you'll feel more centered." Hesitantly, I joined them. Master Kai, a serene woman with graceful movements, led the class. My arthritic hands and stiff joints protested, and I wobbled more than once, feeling clumsy and awkward. But as I attempted the slow, deliberate movements, focusing on my breath and the rhythm of my body, I felt a peculiar sense of calm, a deeper connection to myself. I wasn't just existing, I was truly feeling my body, moving it with intention. "It gets easier," Arthur whispered to me after class, a reassuring smile on his face. He was right. I felt more alive than I had in years. I cautiously shared only a bare outline of my past with my new friends, the broad strokes of a difficult family situation. They offered quiet support, understanding nods, never prying, never judging. In their accepting company, surrounded by their genuine warmth, I slowly began to recognize glimpses of the woman I used to be, the Eleanor who was independent, curious, and resilient, before years of neglect had chipped away at her. Daniel's calls had, predictably, lessened to weekly texts, their tone oscillating between thinly veiled guilt, flashes of anger, and a more insistent, almost bewildered concern. I responded sparingly, a brief "I'm fine," or "I need more time," maintaining the firm boundary I had established. The messages from my grandchildren, however, were a different matter. Ethan's crude drawings of houses and Lily's sweet recorded voice messages asking when Grandma was coming home pierced my heart with a familiar ache. I loved them fiercely, but I knew I couldn't return to that environment. Not yet. Not until Daniel and Rebecca understood the depth of the hurt they had inflicted, and not until I was stronger in my own right. "Healing doesn't mean you have to cut them off forever, Eleanor," Brenda mused one afternoon, sensing my inner conflict. "It just means you have to heal yourself first." "I know," I admitted, a rare moment of vulnerability escaping me. "It's just, I don't know who I am outside of that, outside of being their mother, their grandmother, their burden." Later that week, in the art class I'd bravely signed up for, Clara, the watercolor instructor, approached my easel. I had been struggling with a seascape, trying to capture the subtle nuances of the ocean. She looked at my painting, then at me. "Eleanor," she said softly, "you have a natural eye, a real sensitivity. You see what others miss." Her words resonated deeply. I had always believed I possessed that gift, the ability to see potential in others, to nurture their growth. But in my relentless focus on everyone else, I had utterly failed to see my own value, to nurture my own self. That realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. 2 months into my life at Silver Bay, a text from Daniel popped up, startling me with its unexpected content. "Mom, I was looking through some old medical records. You still have that heart condition, right? Mitral valve issues? Have you been keeping up with your checkups? Just worried. It was a level of concern he had rarely, if ever, demonstrated before. I smiled, a genuine, serene smile. Yes, Daniel, I typed back. I'm seeing Dr. Lee here. My numbers are all improved, actually. She said it's likely due to less stress. I sent the message, then turned to my watercolor palette, ready to paint the vibrant sunset I now saw every evening from my window. If you've been following my journey, you know how far I've come. This next chapter is where everything I've fought for truly comes to a head. It's terrifying, but also surprisingly hopeful. Don't miss a moment. Make sure to like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the conclusion. As summer gracefully surrendered to the crisp embrace of fall, my new life at Silver Bay deepened its roots. My mornings began with a routine I cherished, a leisurely walk along the boardwalk, followed by a warm cup of coffee at the Salty Bean, my favorite local cafe, where the baristas knew my order by heart. My designated bench overlooking the endless expanse of the ocean became a place for quiet reflection, reading, and simply being. My days were woven with enriching activities, the book club, Tai Chi, watercolor classes, and most importantly, meaningful connections with friends who saw and valued me for who I was, not for what I could give or do for them. I had finally built a life where Eleanor truly mattered. One crisp October morning, as I sat on my balcony, meticulously adding a touch of cerulean to my latest watercolor seascape, my phone, which now only received a handful of calls a week, vibrated with an incoming call from Daniel. My hand paused, a drop of blue paint hovering over the paper. A strange intuition, a tightening in my chest, told me this wasn't one of his usual guilt-laden texts. I took a deep breath and answered. Mom, his voice, usually so confident and assertive, cracked, thin and strained through the phone line. We need to talk. I clutched my paintbrush, its bristles still wet with paint, a silent anchor in my hand. My heart hammered, a mix of apprehension and a strange, determined readiness. I'm listening, Daniel, I said, keeping my tone as neutral as possible, unwilling to give anything away just yet. He fumbled with his words, then insisted, No, Mom, I mean, in person. Face to face, please. A flicker of old fear, a ghost of my former self, tried to surface. The thought of confronting him, of potentially unraveling all the careful progress I had made my resolve waver for a moment. But then Arthur's quiet wisdom, Brenda's steadfast support, and the newfound strength within me pushed back. I needed to do this, on my terms. All right, Misha, I conceded. I'll meet you, but only you, and not at my home. I paused, allowing the weight of that statement to settle. There's a cafe called Oceanside on Harbor Street. Friday at 2 p.m. I hung up before he could argue, my hand still trembling slightly. Later that afternoon, Brenda found me still sitting on the balcony, staring out at the ocean, my phone clutched in my hand. Eleanor, everything all right? She asked gently. I turned to her, my facade cracking. Daniel called, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. He wants to meet. Brenda sat beside me, offering a comforting squeeze to my arm. And how do you feel about that? Terrified, I confessed, the word a sudden release. But also, I need to know. I need to face this. Arthur, ever the pragmatist, offered his wisdom during our Tai Chi class the next day. Remember, Eleanor, he said, his voice calm and steady. You set the boundaries now. This is your meeting. If he starts making you feel small again, if he gets defensive or dismissive, you leave. Simple as that. You don't owe him anything beyond your presence. His words resonated, a practical shield against the emotional onslaught I anticipated. Friday arrived, cool and crisp, a perfect autumn day. I dressed carefully, choosing a new elegant teal blouse and a comfortable pair of slacks, clothes that felt distinctly me, not the faded, practical garments I'd worn for years at Daniel's house. I pinned the delicate silver earrings Arthur had gifted me for my birthday, a small gesture of friendship that meant the world, feeling a quiet strength radiating from them. At Oceanside, I chose a corner table, a bit removed from the bustling crowd. I ordered a calming chamomile tea and tried to sip it slowly, rehearsing Arthur's advice in my mind. My palms were damp, my stomach a knot of nerves. Then through the cafe window, I saw him. Daniel. He looked thinner, his shoulders more stooped than I remembered, a shadow of weariness etched on his face. My heart constricted, a familiar ache of maternal concern mixed with a new, guarded resilience. "Mom," he said, his voice softer than I expected, as he slid into the chair opposite me. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in what felt like years. You, you look different." "I am different, Daniel," I replied, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering. He fidgeted, ordering a black coffee, his eyes darting around the cafe, visibly distracted. The silence stretched. "How did you find me?" I finally asked, breaking the tension. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I, I hired someone, a private investigator. I had to, Mom. You disappeared, you sold our house and vanished. Who does that?" His tone held a mix of anger, confusion, and genuine hurt. "Someone who's been invisible for too long," I quietly responded, the words hanging in the air between us. Daniel flushed, his jaw tightening. "This isn't about revenge, is it, Mom?" he accused, a flash of the old Daniel, defensive and quick to blame. I remembered Arthur's words, my emotional self-defense. "Daniel," I said, my voice firm, "this meeting won't work if you're going to twist my words and accuse me. I didn't come here to be attacked." He visibly reined himself in, taking a deep breath. "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just lost and angry. Rebecca shouldn't have said what she said about the medicine bills. She knows that." He finally met my gaze, a flicker of remorse in his eyes. "It wasn't just what she said that night, Daniel," I retorted, the words flowing with a quiet conviction. "It was years of small cruelties, of being overlooked, of being treated like an afterthought in my own home, the home I gave you." I reminded him of his promise, made when I transferred the deed, that he would always take care of me. He bristled slightly. "I thought I was, Mom. We gave you a place to live, didn't we? A roof over your head. Is that all you think I needed?" I challenged, my voice rising slightly. "A roof over my head? What about respect, Daniel? What about appreciation? What about being seen, heard, and valued?" He looked away, muttering about how busy they were, how demanding his job was, how Rebecca had her hands full with the children. "And your silence that night?" I pressed, unwilling to let it go. "When Rebecca publicly humiliated me in front of your colleagues, your friends, you just laughed awkwardly and changed the subject. You left me there, Daniel, all alone." He finally looked at me, shame coloring his face. I, I never thought of it that way," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "That's the problem, Daniel," I concluded, the weight of years of unspoken pain in my voice. "You didn't think about me at all." He leaned back, visibly deflated. "So, this was your plan then? To cash out and leave us scrambling? Is that it?" "No, Daniel," I firmly corrected him, shaking my head. "This was survival. I didn't leave to hurt you. I left because staying was hurting me. It was slowly, painfully eroding who I was." He ran his hand through his hair again, looking utterly defeated. "We're staying with Rebecca's parents," he revealed, the admission laced with exhaustion. "It's not easy. The kids miss you terribly, Mom. Lily cries for you," Ethan asked when Grandma is coming back. "I miss you too, Mom." His raw honesty, the pain in his eyes, made my resolve waver. The mother in me yearned to reach out, to comfort him, to tell him everything would be all right. But the stronger, new Eleanor held firm. "I'm not coming back, Daniel," I stated, my voice softer but unwavering. "Not to live with you. I've made a life here, a good life." He reached across the table, his hand hovering, then gently resting on mine. "Just give us a chance to make things right, Mom, please." I looked at his hand, then back at his pleading face. "What does making things right look like to you, Daniel?" He struggled for words, his gaze falling to his coffee cup. I don't know exactly, but the kids need their grandmother, and I need my mother." He swallowed hard. "This whole thing, it's forced a lot of hard conversations. Rebecca, she's been difficult, but even she's had to confront some things." "I won't be disrespected again, Daniel," I asserted, my voice steady. "That's a non-negotiable." He nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "I understand, Mom, I really do." He then looked up, hope dawning in his eyes. Would you be willing to meet the kids? Just for a little while?" I paused, the image of Lily's drawings and Ethan's voice messages flashing in my mind. "Yes," I finally agreed, a small tentative smile touching my lips. "At a park, perhaps. Neutral ground. Just them and you at first." Relief washed over Daniel's face, a profound release of tension. Back home, Brenda was waiting, a concerned expression on her face. "So, how did it go?" I sank onto the sofa, exhaling deeply. It was a beginning, I admitted, a mix of emotions swirling within me, hopeful and terrifying. The reunion with Clara, now 8, and Oliver, 5, at the local beach park was both easy and incredibly hard. As Daniel led them towards me, Clara spotted me first, her face lighting up with unbridled joy. "Grandma, Grandma!" she shrieked, racing across the sand, her arms outstretched. I knelt, catching her in a fierce hug, tears stinging my eyes. Oliver, more cautious, approached slowly, his thumb in his mouth. He looked at my new, shorter haircut, a modern bob I'd gotten at Silver Bay. "You look like a mermaid queen, Grandma," he mumbled, before finally allowing himself a tentative hug. The afternoon was a balm to my soul. We built sandcastles, chased the retreating waves, and shared ice cream cones, their sticky sweetness a symbol of simple joys. Clara chatted about school and her best friend, while Oliver, ever the quiet observer, shared his latest dinosaur facts. Daniel kept a respectful distance, allowing me the space to reconnect with my grandchildren, occasionally offering a quiet comment or a nod. As the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the beach, Clara looked up at me, her young face serious. "Are you coming home now, Grandma?" she asked, her voice tinged with a child's innocent hope. My heart ached, but I knew I had to be honest, gently firm. "This is my home now, sweetheart," I explained, stroking her hair. "But I promise we can see each other often." Very often. A small tear welled in her eye, but she nodded, accepting. Over the next few weeks, Sunday afternoons became our special time. We explored the local aquarium, marveled at the colorful fish, and watched animated movies at the quaint town cinema. Daniel was always there, chaperoning, but slowly, tentatively, he began to engage more directly with me. A careful truce had been established, a fragile bridge forming between us. He listened, truly listened, when I spoke, asked about my painting, and even remembered to ask about my Tai Chi classes. The old dismissiveness had been replaced by a quiet attentiveness, a nascent effort to rebuild. Rebecca, however, remained a shadow presence. For 2 long months after my departure, she was conspicuously absent from any of our gatherings. Daniel would make excuses, her busy schedule or a migraine, but the unspoken truth hung in the air. Then one Wednesday, my phone rang. Rebecca. My stomach tightened. She asked to talk, just us. We agreed to meet at a different cafe, a quieter one, away from the prying eyes of my new community. She arrived subdued, her usual sharp edge replaced by a brittle vulnerability. She picked at a napkin, avoiding my gaze. I've been seeing a therapist," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Since you left." She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "At first I blamed you, Eleanor. I was so angry, so shocked." She paused, taking a deep, shuddering breath. "But my therapist, she's helped me see things, helped me see my patterns, how I treat people, particularly with the older women. It's a cycle, I think. Something I learned from my own mother, how she treated her mother-in-law." Her confession, raw and painful, took me by surprise. "What did I ever do to make you treat me that way, Rebecca?" I asked, the old question finally escaping my lips, a lifetime of hurt behind it. She looked directly at me, her eyes pleading for understanding. "Nothing, Eleanor," she replied, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "You did nothing wrong. It wasn't about you. It was about me, my own insecurities, my own unkindness." She wiped her eyes. "I'm trying to change. For the kids, for Daniel, and because it's the right thing to do." I didn't offer instant forgiveness. The wounds were too deep, too fresh. But I saw genuine remorse in her eyes, a fragile beginning of self-awareness. "I appreciate you telling me this, Rebecca," I said, my voice gentle. "It's a start." I then extended an olive branch, tentative but firm. "If you'd like, you can join us next Sunday for the children." She nodded, a profound relief washing over her face. 6 months after I left, as the days grew shorter and a chill filled the air, I decided to host Thanksgiving dinner in my small apartment. Arthur and Brenda, my steadfast friends, eagerly volunteered to help, their laughter filling my cozy space as we prepped dishes. The apartment was fragrant with roasted turkey, cranberry sauce, and the familiar warmth of home. Daniel, Rebecca, and the children arrived, a nervous energy surrounding them. Clara immediately attached herself to my side, helping me set the table, while Oliver, ever curious, began peppering Arthur with questions about his naval career. The atmosphere was a delicate balance of old tensions and new efforts. When it was time to serve, I purposefully handed Rebecca a large serving bowl, a silent invitation to participate, to cooperate. She took it, a small, grateful smile on her face. Around the table as we shared the meal, I looked at my chosen family, Brenda and Arthur, their faces beaming with contentment, and then at my improving biological family, Daniel, Rebecca, and the children, their faces softer, more open than I had seen them in years. It was a mosaic of connections, old and new, all coming together under my roof. Daniel, his voice still a little hesitant, but filled with genuine warmth, raised his glass. "To Mom," he said, looking directly at me, "for bringing us all together today, and to new beginnings." Arthur, his eyes twinkling, echoed the sentiment. "To new beginnings," he added, and everyone, even Rebecca, chimed in. Later, as the guests were leaving and the last dishes were cleared, Daniel joined me on my small balcony, the sound of the ocean a soothing backdrop. He gently draped a soft shawl around my shoulders, a gesture of thoughtful care I hadn't received from him in years. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice quiet, filled with deep regret, "for everything, for not seeing you." I turned to him, the cool ocean breeze ruffling my hair. I looked into his eyes, truly seeing my son, flaws and all, but also the love that had always been there, buried under layers of neglect. "I see you now, Daniel," I told him, a soft smile on my face. "And more importantly," I added, my gaze drifting to the vast, calming ocean, "I see myself." The ocean's rhythm continued its steady cadence, a powerful metaphor for the complicated ebb and flow of love, family, and the profound truth that even amidst life's storms, new foundations could be built, and healing, though never linear, could always be found. I was no longer invisible. I was Eleanor, and I was finally, truly home.